Leading up to the launch of Black Ops 7, we found out that we were, of course, getting standard and directed mode like we had previously, but they added Curse to the mix, and that was exciting. But lastly, they were bringing in survival as an actual dedicated mode. This was at first exciting, a small mode on smaller maps to keep the gameplay simple and provide a more chill, casual experience. We were also told that the experience between each map would be different.
So we want to make sure that each survival map kind of has its own identity. Each survival map will kind of have its own unique identity.
The launch of Black Ops 7 brought us Van Dorn Farm, and for me at least, I haven't needed anything else from survival since. None of the maps have given me a reason to explore them, so I want to talk about that issue. Now, I recognize that the little clip I just played is in reference to the Doppelgast specifically, but that is so unbelievably basic that it almost felt like this had to apply to other aspects, like wonder weapons, other enemies, map mechanics, things like that, for example. There was, at least to me, the implication there that they meant more with this statement, and that each of these maps was truly meant to be unique, even if it was in small ways. Small ways, but meaningful ways. Zursa is in all survival maps from Ashes of the Damned, so they all feel samey there, and there's 4 of those maps. Doppelgasts are in Van Dorn Farm and Exit 115, they skipped Zarya Cosmodrome and Ashwood, so when it comes to the areas from Ashes of the Damned, half of them have Doppelgasts in there. Then between the maps, the differences are tiny. They all have the same things in them with Pack-a-Punch, the arsenal, crafting table, armor, all of that stuff is in each map. The only real differences are of course the layout, and then if power needs to be turned on, or if it's on right from spawn. This again led me to believe that they would target differences in the enemies you faced or weapons you used to make each map more unique. Where they could have done some easily forgivable recycling of content is with wonder weapons. Toss in some old favorites across these maps to give each map a different reason to be played. This is the kind of place where reused content isn't going to bother people nearly as much because it is the simple, smaller, casual mode in survival. But they didn't even do this, and for weeks, if not nearly 2 months if I remember correctly, it was bugged and you couldn't even get the Necrofluid Gauntlet in survival, so people couldn't hop in there to at least try it out instead of playing Ashes of the Damned fully. I do like survival, and trust me, I have played a ton of it since launch, but that time has nearly been exclusively on Van Dorn Farm. The only other map that truly gives me any other reason to play, or maybe an itch once in a while, is now that we have Ashwood, as it does have a different mechanic with how Pack-a-Punch is hidden in the Dangerous Fog Zone. It is more fun to interact with that form of a Pack-a-Punch than the other maps, so that is good. But it really just isn't enough, as everything I face in the map, the other 99% of the time outside of going for Pack-a-Punch, is the same as the other maps, but in a tighter location. They gave us Mars Survival, which is a nice change from the other Ashes of the Damned survival maps, until you play it past round 16 and you get your teeth stomped in by Uberklauses. This came from Astra Malorum, where the only elite during normal gameplay in Astra Malorum is Oscar. When Mars Survival was announced, they tagged it as being a nice break from Oscar, to which I distinctly remember saying, but what elite are you going to put in place of him? This was a perfect opportunity to have a map with no elites at all. It is okay to make maps like that, I promise, and honestly I beg for more of it. That's why Paradox is more fun to play through the rounds if you're just playing it in a more simple way when compared to many other modern zombies maps. You don't have an elite to always bother you. Mars could have been that, as with the removal of Oscar, there were no naturally spawning elites from the main map that would come to Mars when it was cut away. But again, it's the Uberklauses, for some reason. They finally switch it up for Mars and it's not a Zursa, but instead of nothing, they put in the Uberklauses and it blows ass because you just get swarmed by them in a tight space and they're obnoxious super tanks. Why is it such a problem for Treyarch to give maps without elites? Especially when it comes to simple survival maps. Just let people relax in your mode meant for relaxing. I played Mars 1 time since it came out, and I do not plan on playing it much more at all because it easily is the most annoying with boss spam, and it does it for no reason. I'm going to have to play it to get footage of it, and then I'm going to get out of it as soon as I can. Something that would have been nice to receive is our final part of Ashes of the Damned, which isn't a survival map. So far, we have Van Dorn Farm, Exit 115, Zarya Cosmodrome, and Ashwood all as survival maps. We also have Janus Towers Plaza as a first room challenge area. That leaves Blackwater Lake, which from day one has had the community quite excited to get it as a survival map. which Treyarch just confirmed isn't going to be a survival map ever? What do you mean? This is easily the coolest section of Ashes of the Damned and would be a sick survival map. We have every other region of this map doing something, but it is your ace up your sleeve that you decide not to utilize? I truly do not understand this. If there was to be one map that actually rivaled my interest in playing Van Dorn Farm, it would have been Blackwater. Of course, dependent upon how they handled enemies, but regardless, it was a section that was capable of being an excellent survival map. And yet that's the one they leave on the cutting room floor? This is what I'm talking about with this mode. It just doesn't make sense how they're doing some of these things. When they could use a great location, they don't. When they could use old wonder weapons to give each map a unique reason to be played, they don't. When they could really switch up enemies with which elite is there, or if there's elites at all, or which special zombie they use, they don't do it. Why did we bother promising unique feels to these maps when you either don't give these maps unique feels, or the one time you do, it's easily the worst map in the game with Mars because of the choices you did make? I know I just gave a bunch of kind of rambling ranting, but now let's give just a few simple solutions that I think, as easy as they are, could actually make some things better for the mode. If you ask me, they should have cut out Exit 115 and done Blackwater instead. Each map would have access to at least one wonder weapon that the others don't have. Farm would have the Gauntlet, Cosmodrome would have the Thunder Gun, Ashwood would have the Crystal Axe, which would work great in a small space with Melee Macchiato, Mars would have the Ice Staff. Then if you kept Exit 115 or Blackwater, you'd just give that one a different wonder weapon. Now each of these maps at such a basic level by adding one gun to each would bring reason for players to hop into the different maps. This is the time for me to add the distinction I am making between normal maps and survival maps. On a normal map, if a wonder weapon is a reused one, like the Blundergat of Paradox Junction, then I want an in-universe explanation as to why that is there. I don't want it to be there just because. I want to see that the devs had a plan and intention with bringing that weapon back. This is my biggest drawback with the Blundergat in Black Ops 7 because there was no explanation for it. It simply is. Throw that all out the window because the survival maps don't need to follow any canon events or story in the same way as a normal map, so I'm not going to ask for a reason as to why a weapon is brought back for a survival map. It will be there, and it's a great way to let people relive some of their old favorites. On the enemy side, we could stop using Xursas in every map and either use other elites or don't have an elite in every map. That would make it fun and different to play each map. Speaking of changing up the enemies, this would also be a great chance to add something like the old Modern Warfare 3 survival maps had. To avoid spoilers, you wouldn't see this until you encountered each enemy yourself at least once in the map. But after that, in the menu when you preview that map, it would list what enemy types are there so you have a quick reference. On Van Dorn Farm, for example, it would say Ravagers, Doppelgasts, Xursas. That way, it is easy for players to keep track of all the many different maps and what different enemies are within those so it can help guide them to what they want to play at a given time. The things that I am asking for are so ridiculously small that it is baffling for them to not be here already. This is the small mode, but the perfect playground to experiment with different weapons and enemy balance to see what works and what people like. Give players a casual map where it is actually just them versus zombies, not all the specials and elites as well. The super sprinters and damage scaling make the zombies themselves plenty dangerous on their own, but having a survival map like this is something I believe would help draw in more players to the game, and maybe they would spread out to more modes after getting a taste of the basic game flow of Black Ops 7. Plus, that would be a good space for them to work on some of their early augments while they are still weaker. They can build up some power and be eased into the game systems while doing so. I think some of these ideas would work great for the more hardcore players to give them some more reasons to keep jumping into these survival maps, but on the flip side, they could actually help invite more players in by giving them things they're familiar with or just a little bit easier of maps that they can get into and get used to Black Ops 7. I do like the survival mode, but there are some things that I think could have been handled better that would have made it even more fun and something that people actively seek instead of it just kind of being the weekly challenge and camo grind mode almost entirely. Has any of this sounded like a good critique, or perhaps any of the ideas, have those been good? Do you think any of these things could work in your mind? Let me know in the comments below and tell me your favorite and least favorite survival maps in Black Ops 7. I will see you all in the next one.